content check for Facebook disses.
Hey, look, everyone, it's Mando!
Ah, Mando!
A Mandalorian armorer has set me on my path.
But you're still running around here with the same little critter.
His name is Grogu. Wherever I go, he goes. Tell me where the Mandalorians are, and I'll walk out of here without killing you.
The Mandalorians are stronger together.
With the Darksaber restored to me, Mandalore will finally be within reach.
The Darksaber doesn't have power. The story does.
This is the way.
This is the way.
This is the way.
It's the only way.
Hello and welcome to Mandalorian Minute, a Who Watches podcast about The Mandalorian streaming on Disney+. I am Travis Fishburne.
I'm Alex Brunel.
And joining us this week is special guest Adam Collins. Adam, thank you for joining us tonight.
Hey, thanks for having me. Had to reschedule once or twice, but appreciate your understanding and your inclusion, sir.
Yeah, nice to have you back, man.
It's always
Happy
fun
to be
when
here.
Yeah,
Good weekend to
Star
be
Wars.
here too. Lot of love, Star Wars love in the air.
Yeah.
Yes.
A lot of exciting news, but also just a very interesting episode of television this week that I can't wait to discuss.
Yeah.
It is very
So we're
interesting.
gonna talk about all the new goodies at the end of the show. That's our concept.
Yeah, so stay tuned. We got an Easter basket full of all the Easter eggs at the end.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah. All right, so we'll just start off with this episode. Also, like Adam, how have you been enjoying this season thus far?
I've been enjoying it. It's interesting to see the way people react season to season to Mandalorian, especially Boba Fett. I kind of include in that because that show got really divisive at parts for folks, and I've noticed that a little bit in this season with some of the more colorful flourishes that we're familiar with in Star Wars, but sometimes that's not always to everyone's taste. As far as the way it's been, where the focus has been, once I kind of adjusted to Bo-Katan's prominence in the story, I've been on board with her presence in the show from the start. What I think I needed to adjust to kind of as the season went on was how much of a focus she is, and that Din, for the time being, is in a bit more of a supporting role. And I think a lot of the frustration I've talked about with other people, and I'm not particularly frustrated about it myself, just because I'm kind of trusting the story and seeing where it goes. But like the fact that Din and Grogu especially have had a couple episodes where they seem like more passive characters, and I'm personally okay with that, just because I'm interested in a lot of the other story going on. But I do hope in these final episodes we see them, bring them into the fold in an interesting way that's not just perfunctory. Because there's a lot of the season that I'm liking. There's a lot of things they're setting up that I think are interesting, but I don't think the season's above reproach. Obviously, I have things here and there that have been a little odd, and we'll get into that.
Yeah. Sweet. Yeah, no, I would agree with all those points. And it's only become a little clearer in the past 2 weeks, how that has been kind of reflected in a way.
For sure.
But yeah, we can get into this episode. This is chapter 22. It's the 6th episode of this season, and it is called Guns for Hire, which is always interesting whenever there is a title that is not just the and a single word after it, which is this show's MO as far as titles go. It's almost like, with Friends, like the one with the one with
their
blank.
format.
Yeah.
And we have an episode that breaks the format in new ways.
So many fun ways.
Well, they all have that Western flavor, you
Mhm.
know, and the blank always are very evocative. You know, Guns for Hire is a bit more straight up, but I think we're, you know, eventually going to have an episode just flat out called like The Hanging. You know,
Ooh, yeah.
it's just we're going to get there. We've had hangings in these Star Wars shows, for God's sake.
It's true.
No, yeah.
Yeah. So we start this episode with we see this cool looking Quarren spaceship flying through space. I like the design of this ship.
Yeah, the
Really
ship
cool.
is great. This feels very classic Star Wars. It
Yeah.
feels very in line with the design language that we already know. The whole design team on The Mandalorian is really excellent about keeping things visually within Star Wars language. Generally speaking, you know, it's not 100%. You can't do anything 100% with this much output, but like by and large, really excellent design work. Like this, I think the Gonk droids throughout this season are another example of that.
Mhm.
Like how would power droids look another, like, you know, 15 years,
Yeah.
etc.
And the other thing about this design is it's so evocative of Mon Calamari spaceships as well, which
Mhm.
they share a same planet, and it would absolutely make sense.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Yeah, this was quite an opening.
yeah,
Yeah, I love this is my favorite scene in the episode for sure.
oh yeah.
This is a great scene.
And next we reveal that there is a Quarren captain inside of a tube. It's not a
Yeah,
back to
big-
tube, it's just water.
Mhm.
Big
Yeah.
yes to the captain's special water tube.
Mm-hmm.
Also big yes to the captain's special fish martini snack.
Mhm.
It's true.
Love these silent bits of world building.
I love the way the tank sunk into the floor like
Yeah,
that. That was
so good.
The efficiency.
Mhm.
I just had to rewind it and watch it again.
And like that's a believable mechanism too for stuff that we've seen in the context of Star Wars, which I like a lot.
Yeah.
I like the things like this too that in a good way make me think of Star Trek. You know,
Sure.
like you know what I mean? Like I like the flight deck stuff in Star Wars. We don't always get a ton of that. So
Yeah.
No. Yeah, we're usually in the cockpit of something. But yeah, here the
Mhm.
next, visual I have up here is hold on. Nope. The next visual I have is the Moff Gideon ship, which
Yeah.
we find out is being taken over by, ex-Wolves and Bo-Katan's old crew.
Yeah.
And the thing I love about this is, as you can see on this visual, when you get really close to this ship, you can tell it's a model. And I really
Yeah.
love that they're still shooting models with this show.
Mhm.
Yeah, the effects continue, and the effects in this episode particularly, the practical work in this episode throughout, and we'll get to it later, but with aliens later in the in the episode is just some of the best Star Wars has had to offer, quite honestly, in terms of just the richness of those appliances and costumes.
Yeah. This particular episode, as I was watching it, I'm like, wow, this feels, while it's in a crazy location a lot of the time, everything feels very real and tactile in a way that
Mhm.
this show sometimes doesn't feel because of, volume things or, how Kenobi would feel.
Yeah, I got so curious about that I looked up the director of photography on this episode because it wasn't a name that I recognized from other episodes of The Mandalorian. His name's Paul Hewen, and he's not a main unit cinematographer by and large. He has 8 credits as a cinematographer by himself.
wow.
One of them is Mandalorian, one of them is Book of Boba Fett, where he has a ton of experiences as a second unit director of photography, which he was on Book of Boba Fett and Obi-Wan Kenobi, and he was the second unit director on WandaVision. So he's like a very high caliber, this kind of guy. And I thought this episode, I've been complaining about how this show looks visually in the last few weeks, and I thought this episode, while still being overall brighter than episodes we've seen because of this weirdly, because of this ultra white kind of interior that's later in the episode. But I thought the cinematography overall in this episode and the understanding of geography was much better than it has been in the show in recent episodes. Sorry, Dean Cundy, but
Oh my, poor Dean.
Those are what I thought. Oh yeah, please continue with you have another slide that's pertinent here.
The next slide, I've said we don't do contractions with the Mando, but like I think it's, you know, kind of obvious with this one that like it was immediately, I'm like, this is very Star Trekish, and
It's
more
a very Star
particular
Trek.
like modern Star Trek, because on the left top is from this episode, and then the top right, that's from this season of Picard, which is how they're, you know, portraying these decks now. They're very dark in appearance, not the, you know, brightly colored as they would be in the original series and the JJ films. And then you see the Quarren guy at the comm, and he looks, I mean, very much like Spock in his location.
Yes, he does.
So I love that.
So like this opening scene, I liked that reveal too, with the Star Destroyer, because, you know, we've gotten so much chatter about Gideon, and I will say that is one thing this season that has mildly irritated me, is all the Gideon talk and the lack of Gideon. You know, even if it's like the Giancarlo show for the last 2 episodes, it's still like, okay, you know, it took a while to get where we're at. So I'm glad that we got this final piece of the puzzle. Plus, it's a cool reveal to see Mandalorians controlling Star Destroyer. I really like that.
Yeah. No, it's been a lot of tell don't show with Gideon this season, and it's crazy because even prior to this, even prior to like the context of the show itself, Giancarlo like always talks about the Mandalorian in interviews, even when he's not promoting the show, and he talks about shooting season 3 and like things that he knows about season 4, and it's like, all right, I'm expecting him to play a role, and when he
damn it, bro,
not, you know,
keep your beautiful mouth shut.
And then continuing on in this season, we go.
So the Mandalorians have been hired by presumably the Quarren government, no, the Mon Cala government, to rescue this prince.
Yes.
Who has not been kidnapped, who is in love with the captain of this Quarren ship. And all of this is great. This is the best, also, like, again, about the costumes and makeup and appliances in this episode. This is the best the Mon Calamari and Quarren have ever looked.
Oh, yeah.
My God. So great. Her perfect British accent is a little much.
It is.
After speaking the native tongue, which is very
basic
slurpy.
is not her first language.
Right.
I'm like, okay, lady.
It's like, wow.
Show off.
You know, it's one of those people on the internet where they say like, sorry for any grammatical errors. English is not my first language, and then they write an essay that's like one of the most well-written things you've ever seen in your life. It's like that.
I had that a little bit with what's her name from Solo.
Oh sure,
Mama Snakeface. What's remind me of her name?
Clark? Oh no, you're talking about Lady
Proxima.
Yeah,
Lady.
I just came back to me.
You.
Lady Proxima came
Very
back
good.
to me. But her goofy
good
voice.
comparison. And I saw because I watched those Screen Crush Easter egg videos. It was pointed out in there that there was in season 1 when Din is looking for bounties to accept. One of them is for a Mon Cala royal person, which this person may very well be the same bounty years later. That's neat.
Yeah, that's very cool.
Then they kiss.
They do. She strokes his face with her tentacles there.
Right after that fish cocktail too.
Yeah, I thought that her voice immediately. I was like, that sounds like Rachel Weisz, but it was not her. It's a actress called Christine Adams. In the Mon Calamari Nobleman is a boy named Harry Holland, who is Tom Holland's brother.
Oh, weird.
Yeah.
Really?
That's fun for him.
And if you look at his filmography, he's always working with, like, all of his filmography minus this is like he worked on Spider-Man and Cherry.
It's like Tom getting his brother work.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, I'm gonna hang out with my brother on the set and be an extra, pretty much.
So he's getting the Casey Affleck, Dave Franco treatment there.
Yeah. Well, it worked out for them.
Yeah, it did.
I like their flair for style and theatrics in the Mon Cala Society, and that makes me want to see Squid Lake in its entirety. Like,
oh, I would love to watch
from the seats. Yeah,
yeah, that could be.
That'd be great.
Just a little extra that they release on Disney Plus or on their YouTube sometime.
Squid Lake.
Yeah,
I know we're covering this episode, obviously, but I just have to say that when that Opera House shot popped up, I stood up in my seat. I was so excited to see it again. I was so excited to see Coruscant again. All the Coruscant this year, or the past fiscal year, let me say. I know we're in 2023 now, but like with Andor this, I'm in heaven with all the Coruscant stuff.
Total agreement. Yeah.
Yeah. Been waiting so long for that planet to come back.
Yes.
So then we go to Plesiosaur 15, right?
Yeah. Plaisir, as I think they pronounce it.
The good version of Sakaar. That's what it looked like to me.
Epcot. Sexy Epcot.
Yeah. It's interesting because it does look like very similar to the planet of Mandalore.
It does.
With the
right?
domes,
It's just these lush green fields with domes.
Mm-hmm.
But this is sexier than Mandalore too.
It really is. And
there's nothing overtly sexual that happens in this episode, but you can tell that these people are getting down.
Well, secretions, Alex.
Yes.
Yeah.
The secretions.
Like secretions.
That is.
There are secretions.
I'll get to my thoughts about that scene when we get to that scene. But
I'm sorry.
My favorite line of that scene. And okay, so they're flying in. They're discussing what they're gonna do. They need to talk to these Mandalorians. They see them parked here on this planet. They're gonna go check them out. As they're going down into the planet, a super happy ringtone overtakes the ship's comms and welcomes them to Pleasure Dome 15, and then takes total control of the ship. Yeah. Is that a normal thing we've seen in Star Wars that people don't have defenses for? I know tractor beams are one thing.
Tractor beams.
But this seemed like the planet like hacked the navigation of the ship and was just like, no, you're going this way now. And Bo didn't have any kind of built-in defense for that, which seems like an oversight in a galaxy where this tech is real.
Yeah, and I feel like Din took that really well. Because that seems like with how untrusting he is towards droids and everything, like that.
Right, they're just basically being kidnapped with a friendly voice, as far as they know.
Mm-hmm. The whole thing reminded me. I mentioned Sakaar because it reminded me a little bit of Thor Ragnarok in that sense, like their arrival at that planet and some of the, the musical cues and things like that. But I feel like this walked right up to that line for the most part, and still like. I found this planet to be more realized than Sakaar. Sakaar felt more like a green screen planet, and this one felt a little more immersive. Yeah,
I agree with that for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many details in this planet that felt like, oh, this does feel like a real place.
Yeah, again, design team all around. Every design department that has to design anything, totally on point. Excellent work throughout this whole episode.
Including these two droids that they see when they get on.
Oh my god, I lost it when I saw these droids. These are the most badass looking droids. I was like really hoping. There are so many moments where I hope droids were going to go real bad in this episode, and they just didn't.
No. I mean, Alex,
love looking at them though.
As a reader of the Dr. Aphra comic, when you saw these droids, did you think that it was 000 and what's the other one's name?
BT3.
BT3.
Or is it BT3? It's BT. But yes, yes, I did think that perhaps it was them. I mean, the 000
definitely a nod. Yeah.
000 does not like 000 looks like 3PO but black. So like I knew that wouldn't have been 000 unless he had super cool like facial armor that we haven't seen in droids before, which I'd be completely down for. But yeah, no, I did hope it was them for a second. But these droids are so cool looking, man.
Still cool.
Love these.
I love the
There's
Death Star droid. And
Yeah.
And it also keeps up this theme in this episode, which we've seen more and more of this season, of repurposing Imperial equipment and Imperial cells, obviously, which we'll get to. But I just love the sleekness of the Imperial design, and just seeing the evil versions of these familiar droids is always cool.
Totally agree.
Yeah. And then they get aboard the monorail. Monorail.
Good tube.
And
They get tubed.
they get tubed.
And they're
all the way
told
in.
that they can't go where they want to go because of some treaty, some bureaucratic nonsense. So they are instead requested at the royal palace, where they are, without question and without choice, just whisked away to, which they are again very chill about.
Like, all right,
Yeah.
this isn't what we came here for. But all right, we'll do this.
It's like, we have more pressing matters. Yes, but also, I mean, you're not on a timetable. They're not on a timetable. They're like, their mission is to go out, get the Mandalorians. There hasn't been an assigned, like, come back Wednesday with all the Mandalorians.
Yeah, they were just vaguely gestured by the armorer to go somewhere and do something.
Yeah. So,
and they're like, all right, armorer.
You have time to go and talk to the pleasure people about what's going on. Anyway, the whole thing is weird, and the weirdness compounds from here. So let's move on.
And it, like, this, I heard somebody describe this as, it feels like a video game, but this is like a side quest.
This is
like,
total side quest.
It would take it like one step further, Alex, with what you're saying. Like, this is a video game where you're like, yes, the next thing you have to go do is you go do this. And the game hijacks, and it's like you have to do this before you can even like continue with the thing
it
you
is
wanted
like
to
technically
do.
a side quest, but you must complete the side quest to continue on the main quest. Yeah, because they have a special item, or the apparently the freaking key to the pleasure dome, which we'll gripe about later. But
this felt very Tom Bombadil to me.
Yeah.
Which
let's segue out of reality for a minute. Yeah, deal with these fanciful folk. But I really vibe with the video game tangential nature of some of these series right now. Like I like stumbling into these like goofy corners of the world, of the universe.
I don't disagree with that. I really like when these shows do that. I like when this show does that. This show did that in the first 2 seasons, and I liked every time it did that in those 2 seasons. My thing comes down to, in this episode, I'll get to later, but this show used to reference like movies such as Seven Samurai and Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and now we are receiving direct references to CSI and procedural crime dramas, and it's like, okay. It just really it feels very emblematic of kind of what I feel about the show at this point, which is unfortunate. Yeah, and this scene upcoming that we're about to talk about.
Yeah, let's go ahead and do it.
Who wants to say who these guest stars are here?
Alex, you can do the honors since you seem so.
So we have Jables himself, Mr. Jack Black, playing captain of something that Queen Lizzo has fallen in love with and taken as the
Bombardier.
Yes. Oh, Bombardier.
Yeah,
right.
Because when you said that, I'm like, oh, it's like Bombadil is very similar to Bombardier, which feels like it's got a.
And then that freaking beard, that's a Tom Bombadil beard.
That is a Tom Bombadil beard. I love the hair and the beard. I love the look of them. I love the holographic dress adornment. I think the gown is beautiful. Like the design of all of this scene is so cool to look at. You could pause any frame and just like study it. It's great.
Yeah, even this particular frame, if you look in the background over Lizzo's shoulder, the guards that they have, they're wearing stormtrooper armor with other stuff repainted on top.
Yeah. And undeniably Jack Black is super funny in this scene.
Yeah.
The head
secretions.
The cock push-up master himself.
I've been doing cock push-ups.
His head, I just have to say, like, I was like I was like second guessing it for a second. Like you hear his voice and you just see his little head at the end of the table, like popping up.
Yeah. No, it's a very recognizable little head. So who wants to go first with their thoughts on these two people in this show?
Well, how about you, Travis?
I will
Travis,
say, as a person who is aware of Lizzo, but doesn't necessarily like follow the music scene too much.
Yeah.
I didn't recognize her. I didn't know who it was until the credit popped up at the end. But Jack Black obviously is just kind of, I don't want to say took me out of it, but definitely made me, you watch it and then all of
That's
a sudden
okay
you're
to
like,
say because it did.
you're like, Jack Black is in Star Wars, not like, oh, this character happens to be somebody else. Whereas like, say Horatio Sands as Mithril was like, I didn't know that was Horatio Sands until the end, and that's because of the makeup and stuff. But yeah. So this is like straight up Jack Black being, Jack Black, and that's fine. It was just very different.
Cock push-ups.
Yeah.
And I don't think he's going to get his own spin-off. And as long as that doesn't happen, I can...
Here's the thing.
Yeah.
I would watch that. I would take a spin-off of these people. Now,
You'd watch Bombardier.
Let me just get into it. If I'm sorry. I need to
let it out. Let it out.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love Jack Black. I have a positive opinion of Lizzo based on very, very little. Because I recognized her, but only just barely. I'm not familiar with the music, but I've seen some of the flute performances.
Now, also, if you're listening to this podcast for the rest of the episode, you're hearing nothing but Lizzo and Tenacious D music. So
Great.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
So these two showing up as these characters and turning in the performances they did, which is to say Jack Black is playing Jack Black and Lizzo is not really quite an actress yet. This feels very Star Wars holiday special-y to me. And that is unfortunate. And it's not that I don't want things like the Star Wars holiday special, because I really desperately do. I love that side of Star Wars so much. But I don't know if I don't like it in the Mandalorian wrapper. This show has given me so many other things that have really enriched Star Wars to me, and the Star Wars holiday special isn't Star Wars enriching stuff to me. That's like Star Wars sitcomery.
Mm-hmm.
That's like if I was just like wanted to goof off in Star Wars land, I could watch the Bombardier. What's his name? Bombardier. I could watch the Bombardier show, and that would be great. I would love that. But as it stands, like this whole thing taking up like 70% of this episode, just like it bummed me out. Yeah.
So I think that's a very fair reaction, honestly.
So yeah, no slight to any of the people involved, like Jack Black and Lizzo. Be in Star Wars. Lizzo, hold the baby. Like, yes, great. I'm so happy for you guys. It's awesome. This scene is hilarious. Like, if you can remove all of the context from it, this is a really funny scene, but leaves a bad taste in my mouth. Yeah,
like the secretions.
I think we all agree that part was cool.
Yeah.
No, I agree with look, if I'm being completely honest, my initial gut reaction was, okay, all right, they're allowed to be in Star Wars too. It's okay that they're recognizable, because yeah, I think there's this delicate balance to Star Wars casting where, I mean, we all know who Carl Weathers and Werner Herzog and Giancarlo Esposito are, but that's interesting casting. Those are not people I expect to be cast in Star. Well, Giancarlo maybe, because he's super popular now, but you know what I mean. Like, those guys are still immersive in the world. I'm not like taken out of it when I look at those actors. So I'm okay with actors being recognizable. But I agree that like initially I felt a little taken out of it in the moment. But we got past like them setting up the plot points. I appreciate where you're coming from on comparing it to a procedural. For me, like I guess I was viewing it from more like a classic noir lens, and I kind of enjoyed. I really enjoyed like the droid bar scene, the interrogation, and
I
stuff
love
like
the
that.
droid bar scene.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the chase scene I really like too.
Also a highlight. Chase is
yeah.
great.
So like all the stuff with the droids and getting the prequel era droids back in an interesting way. The first time I ever came on the show, I talked a lot about one thing I love about these Star Wars shows when they're really on the level is they make me think of the novels and how the novels were the first things to show us what's around a different corner, what's in a different room, what's on a different planet. And I like seeing those corners. But to your point, Alex, I want to stay invested in the story. Right. So as much as I appreciated Jack Black and Lizzo's, involvement, and I support them being, in the show, and I think they're fun, I did want to move on, and I wanted to see Bo-Katan and Din go after the droids at that point. Like, let's go.
Yeah, and like the rest of those other parts of this story, I liked. Like, I like the chase. I like the detective aspect of it, and I don't think there's not room for that within the context of Mando. I think it just pushed that a little bit too far into just like bog standard television work at one point, which we'll get to, and then couple that with cameos akin to Art Carney and Diane Carroll in my mind.
Yeah, definitely feels that way.
But the other big casting in this, I personally, I vibed with. And that was more like the Werner Herzog casting.
Yes,
so, yeah.
I agree with that. Even though he we'll get to it.
Let's go. Yeah.
I don't have a gripe. I don't really have a gripe. It's just another thing about this episode that I think makes it a little lightweight, but particularly funny.
Sure.
This episode maybe overall feels more like an episode of Clone Wars to me than it does Mandalorian.
Yeah, that's it feels.
I could easily
animated
see this being
Wars.
a 2-episode like animated Star Wars thing.
And Clone Wars, you wouldn't even blink at it. It'd just be like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Remember when Zero the Hutt and Sliced Noodles were in love, Alex?
I thought Zero was a gender bending character for a long time because of the Clone Wars movie, so I had to wrap my head around that. I was off for a minute.
Oh, good old Clone Wars. I'm just gonna pop up another image of Lizzo holding the baby.
No, she wanted to hold the baby,
stroking him like I do my cats, and that's exactly.
I'm ready to grow. I want Grogu to use the Force for murder again, though, just so we're clear.
Yeah, he uses the Force for all kinds of fun stuff. So when she asks to hold the baby, Din correctly sighs.
Yeah,
I noted. I did really laugh at every time Jack Black said program when he was referring to programming.
Yes. I love that.
I love when people say program.
It's like
all my ancient teachers when I was a kid said program.
Yeah, program is great. And kudos to Jack Black for bringing that into the Star Wars universe.
John Voight and Transformers always saying robot.
Yeah, robot. What somebody would have said if they didn't call them droids, Jack Jables would have said robot in this scene too.
Yeah.
So then we move on to the security station with our next guest star.
Who's this guy?
Is the image up?
Oh,
are we looking at him?
There he is.
There he is. Good old Christopher Lloyd. Looking so bald.
So bald. And it wasn't until after the episode, I remember, Alex, you and I even talked about like Christopher Lloyd saying he was going to be in The Mandalorian. Do you remember this? Like
vaguely now.
He had shot
Actually,
it.
When was that? Like 2 years ago?
Yeah, it was a while ago. And so it wasn't until after, I'd processed the episode. I'm like, oh yeah, that was a thing.
We knew this. He's super fun in this. And we get this great montage of the droids malfunctioning and going wrong. And I love every single one of them. They're all great comedy beats. And my particular favorite is the protocol droid stealing a speeder and then just smashing it into a wall.
Yes.
It's like a hidden camera like prank show. thing in Star Wars.
That's something else that could show, like, just pop up on YouTube is like an hour's worth of security cam footage of all the droids malfunctioning on this planet.
That would be so funny and
it would
satisfying.
be very funny, satisfying, also probably very expensive for them to animate and just put on.
Well, and then there's the chef droid. I like his rise to prominence. He's showing up in more and more stuff.
Yeah, Favreau decided he really likes the chef droid.
Yeah, obviously, because chef.
And the Foley work on that cutaway was wonderful. With all the murder.
Yeah, it was so good. This is I guess is the closest the show has ever gone to just an out and out comedy episode, in addition to being like a detective procedural episode.
Yeah,
because it does get just straight up funny, and it's pretty intentional.
I think
Favreau wrote this. Of course,
I think one of the funniest, maybe the funniest thing to me in the entire episode is Din kicking the droids. I love that part so much because he's just getting so increasingly aggressive, and I just love that he's always like a character who, no matter how much cool stuff he sees, he's still so true to himself, and he doesn't like droids, and when he wants to like figure something out, he'll just literally like poke at it.
Yeah,
and I loved him kicking the droids.
Well, I there's more to talk about in that scene. There's another scene before that, but that scene is apparently, I've never seen the Will Smith iRobot, but apparently this scene is almost a straight lift from a scene in iRobot.
It's very similar, yeah.
Like in the whole aftermath too, Will Smith trying to find the rogue robot by poking him and annoying him until he finds the one that gets annoyed by it and breaks, and then just tries to flee, and then a chase ensues.
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah.
And I think that's cute. I think that's really funny. Like I don't have a problem with that. I just think it's funny. But that stuff's great. But before that, we have this awesome. Well, do we have more thoughts on Lloyd? I don't know. He comes back later. I guess something we can talk more about.
That's great. Yeah.
We have the scene with the Ugnaughts.
Yeah, he sends them to the Ugnaughts.
This scene is high Star Wars for me. This is like great. This is an episode of Peaks and Valleys. Like real bad for me, because like there's a scene where it's like, this scene is perfect. This scene is exactly what I want out of The Mandalorian. This feels like season 1, like new Discovery stuff, which is like this episode, this scene and the Mon Cala scene at the beginning, and then there's like the lowest lows where it feels like, other things. But
like the holidays.
Yeah, I love this Ugnaught scene. The Ugnaughts look so good.
They look great.
Like if you look at the Ugnaughts in Empire now, it's just kind of like sad.
Yeah.
Well, those guys, I wonder how downtrodden they are based on the way Queel talked about working for the Empire.
Sure. And there was a postulation too in the screen cut video I was watching, like, so like no one works on this planet anymore except the Ugnaughts. And I guess like some security people, but the Ugnaughts are like the only people doing labor.
Yeah, you can shut off the droids, and he's like, yeah, but like then people would have to work and not do everything else.
And that's a very Clone Wars kind of a story too, like the classic, like a very human conundrum that is brought up but not really fully addressed or explored within the context of the episode, is a very Clone Wars kind of a thing. But yeah, so these Ugnaughts, are they doing it because this is like what they must do as Ugnaughts? They must fix the droids, and here are the droids.
I do think like it's kind of like ingrained in Ugnaughts, like we just want to, we got to do this,
right? Like they must.
Even if we weren't, getting paid, we don't even know if they are getting paid. But if they had nothing else to do, they'd be like, well, we just want to do this, so we're going to do it anyway.
Yeah. But yeah, again, the makeup on these guys, amazing. The lip movement on these guys, even pretty solid. Not like, like as best as these things can be. Like,
yeah. And I think it shouldn't be like perfect.
No,
it should have some like weird stuff in it to.
Yeah, because that's also part of how it looks, like as a physical reality. So like, let it be. Yeah,
they all look like Nick Nolte to me now.
Yes, that is true. I do see a lot of little Nick Noltes.
And I'm wondering about that pirate one. I want to know how he fell from his path to the point where like he was talking like Smee from Peter Pan. Like he had abandoned all the vernacular of his people.
He just got greedy at some point.
Yeah, he went down with the ship too. So sad end for him. I'm sure he broke from his people a long time ago.
You know, maybe Marvel will mine some of that for like a future comic book. Maybe we'll get a pirate comic book about. I mean, people would probably love. Well, no, but like a comic book about what's that pirate's name? What's that dude's name?
Gorian Shard.
Oh, Gorian Shard.
Gorian Shard. Like we have not like Gorian Shard is dead, but I feel like fan reaction to that character was strong enough that like we will get some comic books or novels or something that'll be like more of Adventures of Gorian Shard.
I loved Gorian Shard because that made me feel like that was close to what it would have been like if we got the live action version of and help me with his name, the tarantula guy from Clone Wars.
Oh yeah,
tarantula captain.
It's Trench.
Trench,
yeah,
right?
Yes, Admiral Trench, right?
Yeah.
So I loved Admiral Trench, and I wanted to see that spider guy in real life so bad. They could still figure out a way to do it.
They could.
They'd have to find the right slice of the era, but yeah. Or go way the hell back. We'll see.
I do.
Or just another one of his species. Who cares?
Yeah, that's exactly what they could do. With Trench, he started off as a whole spider guy, and by the end of the Clone Wars, he was almost like General Grievous.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then So speaking of droids and Grievous, Matt Wood is back, and he is voicing the B-1 battle droids again. And this scene is awesome. I always loved the B-1 battle droids, the design of it, and I'm glad they're back, and they look so incredible. This looks so much better. They look way better than any time they were in the films.
Yeah. And you know, it ups the Clone Wars feeling of this episode significantly to have a battle droid and Matt Wood and all this, you know, and all these super battle droids kicking around. Yeah. And then there's the Din kicking them, which is a fun moment.
Yes.
And how does the droid admonish them? Like, you know, he would have been fine if you left him alone.
He's like, you should have left him alone.
Yeah. Which, like, true. So here's the thing. Here's where I kind of thought this episode was going, and I kind of wish it did because it's a little darker, and I like that. But this kind of felt because the droid was just fleeing, right? Like he didn't get violent. He only ever tries to stop his pursuers.
Yeah.
He's not like wantonly hurting bystanders on purpose, really. Like he, you know, like if they're in the crossfire or whatever, but he's not like
going on a murder spree,
violently killing people. He's just trying to get away. And then before the droid in the droid bar, which we'll get to, but like says like, we want to help you. It's like that felt very much like it could turn around and these were like rogue droids that were liberating themselves by like somehow freeing themselves of whatever requirements, and you know,
the L337
stuff. Like that kind of thing. Like I thought it was an L337 kind of thing, and you know, that is maybe a little more interesting than where the episode ultimately goes. That being said, that is a very big idea, and I don't know how you would solve that in the last 15 minutes of an episode of Mandalorian where you're already in a side quest.
Yeah, that could be. I mean, that could be a whole movie or a series in and of itself of like a droid uprising.
Yeah,
I think there's room for different schools of thought within the droid community.
For sure,
I believe that the bar. Yeah, I love that the bartender and L337 could be completely opposing ideologies within the droid world.
For sure. Yeah, they'd be Professor X and Magneto.
Yeah.
And then we get the chase, which obviously the chase feels very similar, like you said, to iRobot and also Blade Runner.
Felt the physicality of that droid. That's what I liked about it.
Yeah.
Yes.
I like the weight of the B2s in this episode. I really do. Like that's why I liked when he's kicking them, because I felt the weight.
This is a really good scene. This is a scene that we've seen a lot in Star Wars animation. We've seen a lot of chases through high class, brightly colored, city streets. We've seen this before in animation, and to see it executed this well in live action is like really deeply satisfying.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of what you want that first section of Attack of the Clones to be. You want it to have like this kind of vibrancy and reality to it when they're pursuing the bounty hunter through the streets of Coruscant. I don't know, and I really like the police tape droids too. I think that's really funny. I mean, like, I maybe that doesn't line up with the rest of the stuff I've criticized this episode for, but I thought the police tape droids were funny.
Yeah.
Well,
and again, it makes it feel Clone Warsy.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was just curious, like, again, going back to the Aftermath books, did you guys read those at all?
Yes.
I have not, but I've heard a lot of the things, so please talk freely.
So the thing I liked about that is that was one of the first new canon era books that brought the droids into the post original trilogy era. And specifically there's a droid in it, a B1 battle droid that's repurposed and reprogrammed and also kind of roided up to be like a tougher version of a B1. Yeah, so he can like throw people around and stuff. And his name's Mr. Bones. And I think seeing Mr. Bones or the Imperial Ray Sloane were a ways off. But we did get Cad Bane, or not Cad Bane. We got Cad Bane, but we got Oliphant.
Yeah.
And he's from that book.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah. Remind me of his name again. I'm sorry.
Cobb Vanth.
Space Oliphant.
What was that, Travis?
Cobb Vanth.
There we
Cobb
go.
Vanth. Yeah, because you have Cobb Vanth and Cad Bane in this. Jesus.
Yeah.
But yeah, Cobb from the Aftermath books, because the Boba Fett armor is kind of getting bumped around in these like in between chapters in those. So I felt like, again, this is a continuation of honoring what we've seen in some of these books, some of the promise, and it just really excites me.
Yeah. Alex, you should look up, Google search Mr. Bones, the battle droid. I think you'd like him. He's definitely the
I've heard of
best
Mr.
illustrations out there, yeah.
of those books.
He's kind of like an IG-11 type.
Oh yeah, I love it. He's
just super lethal. Yeah.
He looks like Deadpool.
Yeah.
Yeah, this guy looks great.
And then
then we're in the Resistor next, right?
Yes. They find a spark pad on him, which is
like a droid business card, I guess.
Oh, yeah, like a droid business card.
It's like a matchbook.
Yeah,
it's like a matchbook. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it is like a matchbook. That's yeah.
And then they go to the Resistor.
The Resistor's cool. The assortment of the droids in this place is awesome.
My favorites are the Rex battle droid, or not the battle droids, the Rex captain droids from the original Star Tours.
Right, who are now the resident DJs at the cantinas.
Yeah.
I love the diegetic music in this scene. I love the robot dance jam. I really particularly love the blue protocol droid. I don't know why, but like
very sleek.
That color on the protocol droid just looked so good, man. That was very cool. Yeah. And this is the reverse of the cantina, which is also I really liked.
They walk in, they're like, there's living people here.
Yeah. And it's fun, like the idea, it eventually comes to this, like, Din threatens them and blah blah blah, but the idea that like the humans, the droids are afraid of being replaced by humans if they get shut down, or if like for whatever reason, like that's their worry, and they just want to be helpful to the things that made them. And that is like, that seems just like your wish for AI for us as it's starting to go crazy. Like, your wish is that the AI is going to be like, oh yes, we wish to serve you.
Yeah, they're super grateful to be to have been made by you, and they're like, oh, we're very loyal, instead of
yeah. And meanwhile, Drew Carey's over here making his radio show with ChatGPT and an AI version of his voice, and he just let an AI do an episode of his radio show entirely.
Oh, strange.
Wow. Well, that tells you how dialed in his audience is.
No, some of
But
them were actually like apparently wicked pissed.
so I this also what I enjoyed about some of the thoughts introduced in the scene in the droid bar was it made me speculate about the chatter between droids and their awareness of what's going on in the galaxy, and specifically their fear of being replaced by humans. Because like I was telling you earlier, I finally started watching Bad Batch from season 1, and I'm going to catch up with it soon. But that story is very much about the idea of the clones being replaced by recruited soldiers, and you have to assume that droids would naturally be keyed into that awareness, given that battle droids were the losing side in that war, and that there's this prejudice against them now, and they've got to be so aware of that. And I think I always love seeing new slivers of that, like I was saying with L3 versus these guys in this episode. The sentience of droids is very much a thing, and it's complicated, but I think allowing them to have individual personalities lets us play with that concept in a more interesting way.
Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point about how they were replaced as soldiers, and then those replacements are being replaced. So like, we see where this goes.
And then the First Order just resorts to kidnapping instead of recruiting.
Yeah,
like they escalate it every time.
Right.
Yeah.
Why make something that costs millions of dollars when you just take something?
Right.
I love getting into the nuts and bolts of the finances behind Camino and stuff like that. Like, that stuff would be insanely expensive.
It would be.
Yeah. Like, wow. So then there's a fun little scene in the back office of the Resistor where you learn about this stuff called Nepenthe.
Ooh, delicious.
Which is a refreshing oil that the droids imbibe that updates their programming also somehow. It's kind of cool. I like the idea that the droids like can do something to like relieve themselves.
Well, it made me think of Joan Rivers in Spaceballs. You know, like she's always like Dot Matrix.
Sure.
Always, she's like, I need to change my oil. She's always alluding to like needing stuff.
Yeah,
too. And it made sense to me on like a gut level.
Yeah, and like Nepenthe is, I guess, been around for a while, like going back to like Greek mythology and stuff. But when they said it also evoked Star Trek to me, because it was a planet where like in the first season of Picard, where Riker and Deanna Troi, where they were hiding out and he was making his pizzas, was on Nepenthe.
That's really funny.
There's pizza making in Picard. I haven't watched it yet.
Yeah. You can just skip right to the third season.
I knew about the vineyards, but that was, that's all.
Just slight tangent on Picard. How this like this third season and everything going on with that is giving you everything you wish that they had done in the first season, and it's like, why did it take you so long to do this? This is what we wanted.
Yeah, so also, I left off at like episode 6 in the first season or something.
Yeah, you don't even have to watch those first 2 seasons. Just go straight to the third one.
Really?
Like you don't have to watch. Don't watch the first 2 seasons. Go straight to the first episode of 3. You'll be fine. And
okay, great. I love that.
It gives you scenes that you even wish that the Star Wars sequel trilogy had given you. Where it's like,
God damn it. Yeah.
Give us these things while all these people are still alive. Thank you for this. Yeah, it's just it's
that's
really
a fair
delivering.
Point. Anyway, should we
back
move on to the robot
back to
morgue?
Star Wars? Yeah, and then
where they draw the robot's blood and
go to
have
the robot
drawers
morgue.
of I guess dead droids. What is this place? Come
it's
on.
so weird.
If this place is anywhere, this is in the Ugnaught the Ugnaught dungeon.
That'd be true.
Like, what is this? Come on now.
Yeah. It's
Are there biocorpses in the other ones? Are there like, is this a real morgue and they just like
it reminded me of like
bodies go?
It reminded me of Ian McShane's like unnecessarily large crematorium in the basement of the Continental in John Wick Chapter 3. I'm just like, what? This is huge. Why does he need this big of a crematorium?
It's like,
If
what
people
is
can't
this
even
place?
people can't even be killed here. This is like a
No.
one-off. Like, why does he have this big of a?
Wouldn't
Okay.
they just throw
Is
these
this a
droids
medical
in
facility? Why would
piles?
they bring
Not-
the droid to the? It's
Yeah.
anyway.
And then,
they
like
draw
you
the
said, they
robots in
draw
a
the
pen
blood. It's weird to
with a
see.
needle,
Yeah.
like you would
That was
expect
cool.
to be able to from a droid.
That reminded me of like when you would kick the oil out of the robot ninjas in Mortal Kombat 3.
Yeah.
And
You
then
know what I'm talking about?
yeah, and then they have the computer analyze the sample, and then they find the nano droids inside,
Like,
and then they
oh, it's
rotate the
nanodroids.
perspective, and then they search the database.
But as they're searching the database, the Dr. Ball droid got really upset, and he's like, "No."
That's true. I did like when Dr. Ball droid got super PO'd.
And tried to murder them.
And I do love the Techno Union tie-in here, and it's not so much that like I really. It's one of those things where I just really like the Techno Union because they had the balls to call something in Star Wars the Techno Union.
Yes.
And I like
Now-
when that comes up.
Alex, would you have hit the ceiling if instead of the Count Dooku line, it said Wat Tambor was a visionary?
Oh yeah, I would have
Ooh.
lost my mind.
That would have been awesome.
I love Wat Tambor, man.
I love his
like-
voice.
Yeah,
Word, word.
it's so cartoony and so weird, but I want it in live action. And if there was any episode that was going to do it, it would have been this. But you know what? I'll take what I can get. And apparently what I can get is Christopher Lloyd saying the words Techno Union and Dooku, and that is like
Oh, so good.
satisfying enough.
Yeah. So, spoiler: the person behind everything, it was Judge Doom.
It was
Well, I was
and
doing the math.
he would have gotten away with it too if it weren't for these meddling kids.
Exactly, these meddling Mandos. I thought I like did the math. I'm like, okay, so in the Clone Wars, he would have been like at his youngest in his late 50s,
Yeah.
like give or take. Yeah, so he was really swept up in the Dooku.
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, it's true. And it's so much fun to hear him rattle off this dialogue that's all like deep Star Wars lore. It's not that
Mhm.
he's like talking about like big broad Star Wars stuff. I mean, he does a little bit, but a lot of it is like really kind of specific nerdy terminology.
Mhm.
Not to
And
mention the callback to Quack to calling the Stifling slimy.
Yeah, great line,
I'm here
great
for that.
delivery. His praise of Count Dooku as a visionary, and then to end it all, like Bo just cuts it off by tasing the guy.
Yeah,
It's a-
he doesn't even
it's
let
a-
him monologue. He's like,
It's a
"This is
great
enough."
comedy beat.
Mhm.
Yeah, so doofy as shit scene, but fun.
I was on board at that point.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
I
if,
was
that,
glad
if
that they
that's what
wrapped
we're
that
gonna
up,
do with
yeah.
the episode, yeah, if that's what we're gonna do with the episode, then sure. I liked that. And then we had space croquet with bugs.
Yeah.
Oh, the Alice in Wonderland scene.
Yeah, that.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, thank you. Yes.
Look, Grogu deserved a day off. I'm not mad at Grogu for having some fun, but yeah, like that was pretty superfluous. Even as much latitude as I was giving this episode.
It is interesting how, like, in the first season especially, and even in season 2, Din was so on guard with like leaving Grogu with anybody. He was
Yeah.
very protective, and then these people, they just met, and they're like, hey, he'll be fine with this ex-Imperial.
Right.
Well, he knows that Grogu could choke him out at this point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like he knows Grogu can take care of himself. And this little scene here at the end is fun. Like it's fun for there to be a scene between Lizzo, Jack Black, and Christopher Lloyd.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's fun that it exists. But if you said that to like anyone outside of the context of talking about this episode, like they might just think you're talking about an SNL sketch.
Yes, exactly.
Mhm.
You know, you're like, did you see that thing last night with Lizzo, Jack Black, and Christopher Lloyd
And Grogu, and they're like, oh yeah, there must have been
and
some
Baby
way-
Yoda? It's like, no, this is a thing. It was on Disney Plus. It cost millions of dollars. And And then they, like I said earlier, they get the key to the dome, which, like, what are we even doing at this point in Star Wars? And then Grogu gets knighted.
He gets knighted.
Well, now I will say, from practically speaking, I think what's good is that they establish that line where Bombardier is like, "Yo, if you do this, we'll vouch for you with the New Republic," and that is important because that gives this, important functionality. And I'm also glad that we didn't end on the arrest of Commissioner Hellgate. We had the final scene, because I think that was a good note to end on.
I agree. Yeah. I agree with that for sure.
Yeah, and then we get to the final scene where they go.
All the story of the episode takes place.
That's where everything. What you thought you were going to do to begin with.
We got to the boss fight. We had to get through all of the,
That was the dungeon crawl, and now we're at the boss.
Mm-hmm.
I do love this shot of all of the ships.
This is a great shot.
Like all of the big ones. It's just like, we're going to park them all right on the lawn.
Yeah. It was like they were at a festival.
Yeah.
And then they spar pretty immediately, Bo and Axe. Is his name Axe?
Axe Woves.
Axe Woves.
It's hard to say fast. Axe Woves.
So they fight, and this is like, building on how great that chase scene was. This is a great fight scene. Like the fight choreography here is really solid. There's a lot of turns that are, it's all very soft. Neither of them is going to kill each other because the show has more story to tell. But, like, there's little turns it takes that you don't quite see coming. There's a lot of really fun jetpack play. The way it's shot, you have a good sense of the geography of the scene. It's really nice.
Yeah, and some good classic punches to the face.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, just you got to have a few of those.
Yeah,
and
really
I appreciate that, like, with them, like fighting as complete equals, obviously. I appreciate that he called her out for not challenging Din directly, and we all can speculate as to why she isn't doing that. But I think what it comes down to is there's no real need for them to fight, and with her and Axe, there's a reason to fight.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I also love that with the fight scene, they both fight with their helmets off, which is cool, because that makes it, they could have very easily and rightfully been like, well, if they're going to fight, they're going to have their helmets on, and it would have made it so much easier as far as the stunt casting. But they're like, no, we're just going to do it with the helmets off.
Yeah. But instead we get this cool fight scene, and then a whole bunch of, like, actually about the Darksaber until it winds up in Bo's hands.
All right. So then, there's a actually where Mando's like, well, when we're on Mandalore, I was taken captive and she beat my captor, and this was my response during that.
Man, this is some bullshit.
Hey, Cyclops droid.
Yeah,
was the ruler of Mandalore, dude. For a second, you gotta give credit where credit's due.
That's true.
I love that is official Star Wars canon now. That, like, briefly Cyclops droid was the rightful ruler of Mandalore.
Good for him. And on the actual planet. Yeah.
He's picking up trophies he didn't even know he was going for.
He was too concerned with Mando's blood.
Right. This is fine. It's dumb, but it's fine, I guess.
No, it's not. It's not fine. I did not like this. This is because
that thing's been passed around a lot pretty haphazardly, even in the animated shows.
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
And that's an issue, is she was given this in Rebels, and she lost it and lost Mandalore, and I think it's implied she lost it because it was not won properly. And so after everything went down at the end of season 2, it's like, oh, this is interesting. What's going to happen? It's like
nebulous as to who actually possessed it, right?
Who would you say?
Would it still be right? Would it still have been Riley Din at that point?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So it's like she's gonna have to challenge him, or he's going to, you know, he doesn't want it, and I'm like, so she has to challenge him, or he has to like want it eventually, and there has to be some kind of a conflict here instead of this happening, which is calling back to an episode a while ago, which they never even addressed. It could have been something where she's like, or he's like, you know, you did do this. Like, it was never even brought up on the table. Nobody thought a thing of it. It's so weird.
If you want a real like the quacks are calling the stifling slimy, I gotta say, the helmets off Mandos and their obsession with the Darksaber, it's pretty hilarious for them to be so critical of the Children of the Watch for keeping their helmets on and being zealots when they're all obsessed with a weapon that's pretty arbitrary. And I think that the one thing that's consistent, I think what's so frustrating about the way this thing changes hands is because it's very speculative, the meaning we assign to this Darksaber. What the thing we all agree on is it's a cool weapon, but at the end of the day, it is kind of meaningless. And Cyclops tossing it to the ground like it's a piece of crap kind of tells you everything.
Yeah.
And it's important insofar as Bo-Katan needs it to unite this aspect of the electorate, if you will. But I just love that the Children of the Watch, as zealous as they are, like Din Djarin especially, he had to go baptize himself in the waters of Mandalore, and yet he wants nothing to do with this Darksaber.
Right.
It's hilarious to me. That's I enjoy that.
Yeah, that is interesting.
With Din specifically, I mean.
And she's like, yeah, I've been to the waters. Like,
yeah,
you can have them. I don't care about the waters. Give me the sword. And he's like, I don't care about the sword. Give me the waters.
Yeah, they're so weird.
Yeah, it's very interesting. But I just feel like it was set up to be something that it ended up seemingly not being at this point. And
you're totally not wrong. I guess the way I feel is like both the helmet stuff and the Darksaber stuff at this point are so unnecessarily convoluted that if they just end them with whatever reasoning, I'm just like, okay, I'm glad we're moving on.
Yeah.
You know,
I think we could have the armorer with her helmet off, like hanging out, you know, and they're all like using the Darksaber once in a while. Who knows?
Yeah, like if you're just gonna like keep making up weird different rules, or we have to keep track of stuff, just like finish it and move on so we can like tell other parts of the story that are actually interesting, please and thank you. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I
you're
get,
not gonna
I get
take
that.
the opportunities to make these parts of it that interesting.
I think at the very least, functionally, with 2 episodes left, we're at the point now with Bo-Katan and the Darksaber that we needed to be like with Din and Grogu being reunited, essentially.
Yeah. No, I do like where this leaves us for the last 2, and with how much ground this show has already shown that it wants to cover in an episode when it can, which is like a whole lot of narrative ground. You know, I'm really hoping for a lot from these last 2 episodes, I guess. The last frame of this episode is cool.
Yeah,
Bo with the Darksaber. Good for her.
Certainly.
Pointy.
Even
so yeah,
though...
looking forward to
bullshit.
But yeah, looking forward to the next 2. The I believe they are both directed by Rick Famuyiwa, who I believe is the best of the Mandalorian directors as far as what he's bringing to the table. They screened chapter 23 at Star Wars Celebration, and it's awesome, apparently. So spoilers could be out there. I have not seeked them out, and I don't intend.
Yeah, no thanks.
Yeah.
No. But yeah, a lot of cool stuff out of Celebration.
Yeah, I'm gonna review. I want to like talk about the Ahsoka trailer a little bit, and as much as we can, but stuff in brief that is like, I really hope these aren't things that are gonna go the way of basically literally every other project that's ever been announced at Star Wars Celebration since Disney took it over. but the idea of James Mangold doing a Dawn of the Jedi movie,
Mm-hmm.
James Mangold doing it, that's fine to me.
Yeah.
He seems like a serviceable guy for what they want out of that thing. I'm into that time period. Thumbs up. I wanted to see that movie.
Dial of Destiny seems promising. I'm excited to see it.
Yeah. Mangold's made good movies, like undeniably. Like he knows how to make a good movie. And then the idea of Filoni directing a like Mandoverse wrap-up movie, like an Avengers style.
Yeah.
That's very exciting.
Bring
It's
it on.
also
Make it 3 hours
crazy
long, please.
that they went ahead and announced it so far in advance because Kathleen Kennedy said we've got 6 or 7 years until that even happens. This is
but it's nice to know. The thing is to know is that there is a trajectory for the story that they have an end for in mind.
It is.
That's really good.
They're learning from that. They're learning from that. And I know a lot of people are already talking about it, but with the announcement of Rey's new movie,
right, and that's the other one.
Like Grogu and her meeting up in the future is something I think a lot of people are interested in.
Totally.
Myself included.
Should happen. Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I really like the idea. I love Daisy Ridley as Rey. I think Rey is a great character and potentially great character that was underserviced by poor storytelling. So I am very interested in seeing her do more with that. I'm really happy that she's still down to do that because I know Boyega would not come back and do any more Star Wars, and that's a big bummer. But I would be excited to see this. I saw one comment online that did kind of break my heart, which is that this should have been Luke's movie, which is 100% true.
That's actually, yeah.
And that is a kind of a heartbreaking thing to think about, but we will take what we have and see if it's any good, and I'm open to seeing what that movie can bring us.
Yeah, I'm interested in that because
I just want a movie again, please.
Yeah, bring us a movie.
This is
and she also confirmed that, and Kathleen Kennedy also mentioned that Rogue Squadron and the Lando show are not dead. And Donald Glover's even talked about Lando a little bit recently. So
yeah.
No, he's not doing Atlanta anymore. He's got more time.
Right. Community movie apparently starts shooting in a few weeks, according to a couple sources.
And I'm on board with this. What we're seeing with Genevieve O'Reilly with as Mon Mothma. After Andor, I was very hopeful that we would see her play the character post Jedi. So after the Ahsoka trailer, I was very pleased.
So that's the big. Oh wait, one more minor is that we're going to get a season 2 of Tales of the Jedi. So that's in the pipeline too. So that's
thank goodness, yeah.
That's going to be great too. I'm super psyched for that.
I like Tales of the Jedi a lot.
But yeah, the Ahsoka trailer was just. I said, "Oh my god!" I think 8 times in the 2.5
really
minutes.
Cool.
Wow, it is really it was. So we had Sabine, we had Chopper.
Yeah.
We in the first part. What else did we have that was
Hera?
Hera, yes, thank you.
Yeah,
the back
of Thrawn's head.
Thrawn's head, which is
holographic
so great.
Image of Ezra.
She says "heir to the Empire." That's when I lost my mind. Is when Ahsoka actually says the phrase "heir to the Empire," and I'm yes.
It's very obvious in and we've talked about the sequels when I've been on here before, and again, I'm a very forgiving Star Wars guy. I give it the benefit of the doubt as much as I can, but it can be hard sometimes. And I'll admit that even though I like a lot of the stuff about the sequel trilogy, it's all over the place thematically and plot wise. And what I'm so encouraged by in the post sequel era and TV era is now the storytelling team seems like they're really syncing up. And what I would love more than anything is for the sequels to get their I'm not going to say redemption, but their integration.
Yeah.
The way the prequels did. And I want that story to start connecting more. I'm all here for retroactively sowing the seeds for Palpatine clones or whatever you need to do to make it more interesting. Just make it connect in a meaningful way. That's what I want.
Totally. The thing and it's an uphill battle, and this is something I've talked about on the show before, because that's like a big thing that, like, because I have really liked the ways in which they've attempted to do that so far in the context of these new stories where the big story brain is behind it. But it's an uphill battle, right? Because like enriching the prequels is one thing. There's a rich story base to actually draw from. The story was solid. The bones are solid. The storytelling in the sequels is all over the place and entirely there to service whatever idea they thought might be the right thing to benefit the box office of that movie. You know, and it's really unfortunate because it leaves with like a lot of like hanging chads and like, you know, a lot of stuff that can't really be patched out without, you know, decanonizing major movies.
And they're going to be doing it.
I want Filoni to play with the sequel era himself more.
Me too.
I think it'll benefit from his involvement.
Me too. Yeah.
He's now involved to a degree where they do have him as an actual like producer and consultant. Kathleen said that when Mangold was pitching his idea, like they worked together with Filoni. Like,
to make sure it worked in the larger plan.
And I'm sure
Thank God.
They're doing the same thing with this Rey movie that was originally the Damon Lindelof thing. And they're going to be working on this from like both angles, you know, like they're going to be working at prior to the sequel trilogy. And now they're going to have another angle of right after the sequel trilogy to like try to integrate and patch things.
And that's great. I want them to start taking different eras to see what we respond to most, to see what they're best at producing, and to give us more of something that we haven't seen before.
No, it's very exciting going way so far in the past that anything is possible because you don't have any expectations.
And also there's like really rich now non-canon stories about the dawn of the Jedi and the first Jedi and I can't remember. I can't believe I forgot the name of the planet because it's in Clone Wars and they have the flying beasts. Heck. Anyway, but yeah, the Tales of the Jedi comic books, and there's a lot of really cool stuff in with that is a rich source to draw from if they wanted to, and it's a very different and weird style of Star Wars that if anybody wants to take a trip back to 1995 is well worth reading. But so, you know, I don't think that it's is as rich as like Timothy Zahn's work on the Thrawn stuff in the 90s that they're still drawing from. But, you know, maybe, Onderon, the Beast Riders of Onderon. That's what it was. Onderon was from the Tales of the Jedi comic books. Anyway, I'm particularly excited about that. It's going to be cool. Oh, and then Skeleton Crew, they confirmed is continuous in this Mandoverse thing.
Yeah. That's
which is
coming later this year.
You know, now we have to watch a kids show, but that's fine. I mean, we would have anyway. But it's interesting that that's like actually going to tie into the narrative. I hope it's not like Resistance level kind of stuff.
Oh, it definitely will not be. No,
right? The Daniels didn't direct an episode of Resistance.
Yeah. Also,
Resistance is still the only show I haven't really been able to get over the hump with.
Same.
Yeah,
although apparently there's a character from Resistance in the Ahsoka trailer I saw.
Or his dad or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I think it's his father. Yeah.
And the Jedi training droid.
Yes.
That David Tennant plays.
Yep.
Yeah. Wow. He's still around. How great.
That's very exciting. Actually, like with the Skeleton Crew, I actually thought Hu Yang could potentially be like a part of that. But like it's cool that he's in Ahsoka.
Maybe he'll be in Skeleton Crew too.
He could be in both, yeah.
And I'm the show I'm really excited about, which we won't get till next year, is The Acolyte.
I'm so psyched for The Acolyte.
I'm gonna start finally. I need to. I've been letting the High Republic stuff build up. I haven't read any of those books yet. I've been trying to get like a read on, you know, seeing what rises to the top, you know, what I can prioritize, because I really want to get into some of that stuff before The Acolyte comes out.
Yeah, the comic, I haven't read any of the High Republic novels, but I read the whole first wave of the comic books, and that stuff is all very fun and very cool.
Okay.
Not like the rich, it's all very comic booky because I read, you know, junky comic books, but I would bet them the novels are richer, but the stuff that they were talking, the ideas and the set pieces were all very cool things. and the Jedi involved. I mean, like a wise old Wookiee Jedi, like so cool. Yes, please.
Yeah. Let's get an Ugnaught Jedi. That's we need that.
Do it. Wow. Yeah, that's all great, all very exciting, and all great stuff to look forward to, as well as the last 2 episodes of this season. And I think that's kind of where we'll end it. So
We could go on and on.
We could, absolutely. So Adam, thank you for joining us tonight. And, before we leave, is there, where can people find you?
Well, thanks as always for tolerating my presence. I really I need an outlet for this, so I appreciate getting to shoot the breeze with you about Star Wars
anytime.
But Marisol McKee and I, my partner in life, and also on our channel, we have a channel called @ChampsOnFilm. Please follow us on YouTube @ChampsOnFilm. We're also on Twitter and Instagram, building up our whole presence here. But we're having a great time. We had an Oscar reflection and a John Wick review recently, and we have our first wrestling AI battle between myself and Chance Ellison coming up soon. So keep an eye out for that.
Nice.
But thank you. Yeah, that's where I'm at.
Yeah.
Champs on Film.
Champs on Film. Subscribe and like. And Alex, how about you?
I encourage everybody to watch Apple TV's number 2 television series at the moment, Shrinking. Number 1 is Ted Lasso because there's new Ted Lasso.
Yeah.
But then when you run out of new Ted Lasso, just watch Shrinking because it's great. And then write Apple TV and Bill Lawrence and demand that Jim Frona shoot the 2nd season that we've been renewed for, so that I may again hang out with all those cool people.
Alex, I'll prioritize watching that. That's been on my radar. You worked on that?
Oh yeah, I was ACAM on
that. All right, well, excellent. That's really exciting. I'm
watch the show. That. I'll tell you stories.
Okay.
But Shrinking's great. Watch the show. My website is abrunel.com. I think if I have an @ I'm that on Instagram. Otherwise, don't look for me on Instagram. And yeah, that's it.
Cool. And you can find the show at whowatchespodcast@gmail.com, at whowatchespod on Twitter. You can find me at Travis Fishburne, all those good things. And so until next time, initiate self-destruct sequencing.